This is part 2 of Chapter 9, The Long Road Traveled, from a story called The Time-Dilated Generations, by Esteban Gallardo. Her mother, Emma, had once written that if humanity wished to endure, it could not become a species of machines. Mankind had to embrace love, to carry it across the stars, or else risk losing the very thing that made them human. And that was what made today so unbearable. Today, Ellie, Daniel, and Leo stood at the precipice of history. Daniel was about to become the first person to travel at 90% the speed of light. The drones had reached even greater speeds in previous tests, peaking at 95%, but this mission was about proving that a human could withstand the journey. Ellie had designed every system. She had checked and rechecked every calculation. She had left nothing to chance, and yet, deep in her gut, she was terrified. Daniel was in the cockpit of the Endeavour, his sleek, state-of-the-art spacecraft docked at the orbiting station. The control room, deep within the moon's underground base, monitored his every move. The inertial mass offloading system is in the green, Daniel reported, his voice calm and steady. Standby tests confirmed that the minimal offloading state is operating at a constant, stable rate. Ellie took a deep breath, steadying herself. Acknowledged, she replied, forcing composure into her voice. Her fingers curled tightly around the edge of the console. The numbers on her screen confirmed everything was operating perfectly, but numbers couldn't calm the storm inside her. She hesitated for a moment, then allowed herself to say what had been burning in her chest. "You still have time to skip this rodeo, cowboy," she said, trying to keep her tone light. "Just say the word, and I swear you'll have the first pick of the next spaceship. Full control, no debates." Daniel turned his head toward the camera, and there it was, the smile that had pulled her out of the darkest moments of her life. The kind of smile that turned bad days into something bearable, the kind that made the whole universe seem a little less cold. "I trust you, Ellie," he said softly. "We've been through this thousands of times. We're ready." Then, with that mischievous glint in his eyes, he couldn't resist teasing her. And besides, this cowboy is really eager to ride this wild, wild horse. Ellie groaned, exasperated. "Oh God, what a monster I've created," she muttered, shaking her head. She was trying to keep the mood light, but the truth was, she was searching, grasping for anything that might reassure her. Anything that could convince her she wasn't about to send the love of her life into oblivion. Her voice softened. "Just promise me. If anything even seems slightly wrong, you'll abort the mission. No hesitation." Daniel's expression grew serious, his teasing vanishing. "Ellie, my love, I promise." His voice was firm, unwavering. "But don't worry, I'll be back with a little present from you for my scenic tour of Saturn's rings." He grinned again. "What kind of rock does the lady prefer? Frozen rock type A or frozen rock type B? I'd ask if they could wrap it up in gift paper, but I have a feeling Saturn doesn't stock your favorite kind." Ellie swallowed against the tightness in her throat, her voice barely holding steady. "The only gift I want is to hold you again in my arms." Daniel's eyes softened, his voice a quiet promise. "That one I can guarantee. No matter what. I'll be back to you in no time." The control room ran its final checks, verifying that every system was green. Across the various departments, confirmation signals flashed across the monitors. The countdown sequence was prepared. Ellie's hand hovered over the final command. She looked at the screen one last time, at Daniel's face, his unwavering confidence, his trust in her. With a deep breath, she gave the order. "Endeavour, you are go for launch." And with that, Daniel was on his way to making history. For hours, Daniel navigated Endeavour to its designated starting position. The real test was about to begin. The first phase of acceleration was critical. He would engage the inertial mass offloading drive to push the spacecraft to 1% the speed of light. That threshold was non-negotiable. Anything faster, there was a risk of being caught in the unpredictable chaos of the asteroid belt and the massive swarms of Trojan asteroids trapped in Jupiter's orbit. At that speed, the onboard detection systems would have enough time to react and to adjust the course if an obstacle appeared. The chosen testing grounds lay far beyond Jupiter, nestled between the orbits of Saturn and Uranus, 2 billion kilometers away from Earth. It was a region carefully selected for its relative emptiness. Jupiter's immense gravitational pull had long since swept most debris into the asteroid belt, while the distant Kuiper belt contained the frozen remnants of the outer solar system. Here, in the void between those two great barriers, the Endeavour would take its first true leap. Once Daniel reached the designated coordinates, only one thing remained: final authorization. Once initiated, there would be no abort sequence, no turning back. Daniel's voice came over the comms, steady and composed. Endeavor to command control. I confirm that the spacecraft is in the planned coordinates and all systems are fully operational. Standing by for authorization to engage the inertial mass offloading drive. Ellie closed her eyes for half a second, drawing in a deep breath. The tension in the control room was suffocating. She had run the numbers, triple-checked them, 100 times over. And yet, the fear still sat like ice in her veins. She exhaled and pressed the transmission button. Command control to Endeavor. Acknowledged. She swallowed hard, forcing the words out with as much composure as she could muster. All systems are confirmed green on our end. A heartbeat of silence. Then, Endeavor, you are authorized to engage the inertial mass offloading drive. A long pause. Then Daniel's voice, calm and confident, filled the room. Acknowledged. Engaging launch protocol now. Time to take off. 20 seconds. He turned his head slightly toward the camera. His eyes locked onto Ellie's. Ellie, he said softly, his voice carrying across the void like a promise. I'll be with you in no time. I love you. Ellie pressed a hand to her chest, as if trying to physically hold in her pounding heart. I love you too, she whispered, though the comms were already closed. 5 seconds. Inside Endeavor, the life support systems activated its final sequence. A high-density compound was injected directly into Daniel's bloodstream, a perfected version of the formula Ellie's father had once used for space travel. The original compound had allowed humans to survive extreme gravitational forces, but this was something else entirely. Years of refinement had turned it into a marvel of bioengineering, capable of withstanding acceleration forces exceeding 40 Gs. In just 3 seconds, the fluid would spread through his organs, reinforcing every cell to endure the unimaginable. 4 seconds. The control room was silent. No one dared breathe. 3 seconds. On Earth and the Moon, every screen was turned into the broadcast. Across humanity's scattered remnants, workstations lay abandoned. Conversations fell silent. No one wanted to miss this moment. 2 seconds. Leo sat in front of the screen, hands clenched into fists, his bright eyes wide with anticipation. He had never seen his father as just a scientist or a pilot. He was a legend, a hero, the man who would take humanity where no one had ever gone before. 1 second. Ellie closed her eyes and whispered the only thing she could, a prayer, not to a god, but to the universe itself. Please, keep him safe. Lift off. The helium-3 nuclear engines roared to life, generating a constant 30G acceleration. 20 years ago, such forces would have been lethal, crushing bones, rupturing organs, turning blood to sludge. But today, thanks to the relentless genius of human engineering, Daniel could withstand the pressure with relative ease. Modern physiology enhancements allowed humans to endure extreme gravitational forces for prolonged periods, hours, even days if necessary. Thankfully, Daniel would need more than 10 minutes. In that time, Endeavor would reach a stable cruising velocity of 1% the speed of light, fast enough to safely navigate the treacherous gauntlet of the asteroid belt and Jupiter's Trojan clusters. Any faster, and the ship's onboard trajectory correction system wouldn't have enough time to react to unseen debris. Pinned to a seat, Daniel had nothing to do but watch. The liquid augmentation of his bloodstream countered the crushing force, keeping his organs functional, but it didn't grant him the strength to move. His limbs were leaden, his vision slightly distorted from the gravitational strain, but his mind remained sharp, locked onto the mission data flashing across the control panel. And what he saw was nothing short of miraculous. The inertial mass offloading drive was delivering as promised. With only 3% of the ship's helium-3 nuclear fission energy output, Endeavor was accelerating with unparalleled efficiency. Without Ellie's breakthrough, reaching 1% light speed would have required pushing the reactors to 50% capacity, burning through almost their entire fuel reserve just to complete this initial phase. But thanks to the offloading drive, the ship was consuming a mere 2% of what it would have otherwise required. It was nothing less than the dawn of a new era. Daniel could feel the change before the instruments even confirmed it. As the ship neared its target velocity, the G-forces began to ease, the crushing weight lifting moment by moment. By the 10th minute mark, the strain vanished entirely. The ship was no longer accelerating. It was gliding, 1% the speed of light, smooth and stable. And Daniel was free to move again. He wasted no time. Daniel's fingers flew to the comms panel. "Endeavor to command control." His voice was steady, but his exhilaration was unmistakable. "First stage completed with full success. We are in a stable cruise at 1% light speed. Everything went off without a hitch." Then he let out a breath, a grin breaking across his face. "Congratulations, people. We did it." He turned to the camera, locking eyes with the woman who had made it all possible. "Ellie, you did it." The control room erupted. For an eternity, the world had only known struggle, only the slow, desperate fight for survival. But in that moment, pure triumph swept through every last soul who remained. The underground command center roared with cheers, with shouts, with the deafening sound of a species reclaiming its destiny. The celebration spread like wildfire, through the moon base, through the hidden city on Earth, across every human colony still clinging to existence. For the first time in generations, mankind had taken a step forward, not in retreat, not in desperation, but in victory. Amidst the chaos, Ellie was crying, not just from success, but from relief. Daniel was safe. They had done it. She barely had time to process the moment before she felt herself being pulled into a dozen embraces. Scientists, engineers, technicians, all of them swept up in the raw emotion of the moment. This was not just a technological milestone. This was humanity's first step beyond the solar system. As the celebration settled and the tension drained from the room, the focus shifted back to the mission. The next 200 hours, 8 days, would be spent coasting towards the final testing ground, the vast empty space between Saturn and Uranus. It was there that they would attempt the real test, the ultimate leap that would determine whether humanity could conquer the stars. If they succeeded, the universe itself would be open before them. That was part 2 of Chapter 9, The Long Road Traveled, from a story called The Time-Dilated Generations, by Esteban Gallardo. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next time.